Hey, Tom.
Hey, Julie, good morning.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Interesting times, interesting political times in the city and the country.
Indeed. Which is part of why I'm really excited about this podcast. There's so much craziness in politics, but what we're going to talk about today is how to actually make local government work better for people.
Lord knows it needs it. Not a minute too soon. And I think that, what the people we're going to talk to today are going to demystify AI and its effect on government.
That's right. We had a conversation with Tim Rahschulte, the co-founder of the Professional Development Academy, and Rita Reynolds. She's the Chief Information Officer at the National Association for Counties. And it's so interesting because counties are like on the ground. That is like local government.
Totally. Yeah.
And they're thinking about the same thing all of us are thinking about, like how to use AI, where should we be using AI, what's it going to look like?
Absolutely. I mean, I think listen, you hear about things like what happened in Chicago yesterday with the whole education council stepping down last week, and city government, local government, county government. We need to make those work because Lord knows the federal government's not working.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think these conversations are for that reason so important. And we're thinking a lot about this at Tech NYC with a project we're doing called Decoded Futures. Uh, it's different because it's not local government, but we're thinking a lot about how we can help build AI capacity and help support local nonprofits who are thinking about these same questions. These things are tough enough to figure out in really advanced, large companies, let alone underfunded governments or nonprofits.
Yeah. One thing I'm excited about with AI too, coming from the community newspaper world, like no one attends city, council meetings or community board meetings. Like, can AI record these meetings and distribute it to the community so people actually know what the hell's going on their block or down the block? And I think that's something that makes me excited about AI.
Yeah, me too. We should thank our sponsors. You want to
Yes.
do that,
So
Tom?
before we start, I want to thank our generous sponsors, Uber, Spectrum, Civic Hall, TikTok, Google, DoorDash, and Snapchat. Thank you all for helping us get this podcast off the ground. And now we're going to go to our regular show.
Tim, Rita, we're so excited for this conversation. Thanks so much for being here. Why don't we just quickly start with some introductions? Rita and then Tim, give us 2 seconds on who you are, what you're building.
Rita Reynolds here. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the National Association of Counties. And I've been working with counties for about 36 years on technology. And right now, it is definitely an evolutionary period. And we just completed a year-long process with an AI exploratory committee, developed an AI toolkit. And then Tim, of course, and I are working closely together on this fall educational series. So that's a quick overview.
Great, Tim.
Hi, everybody. Julian, Tom, thanks for hosting us today. Really appreciate it. Tim Rahschulte, CEO of the Professional Development Academy. We have been around for 10 years, making existing leaders better and emerging leaders ready to address the big pressing issues across the business of government. And one of those big pressing issues right now is the digital transformation, especially how best to leverage AI for good.
Fantastic. That's a great intro. So where did this idea develop? How did it start, and where does it stand right now of training people?
I think we both have similar perspectives. So, Tim, why don't you go ahead and then I can share the history of the AI Exploratory.
The AI Leadership Academy came about from the same way in which all of our programs come about, and that is through the voice of our customers. We launched our High Performance Leadership Academy in 2014, and from the voice of our customers, we learned the growing need for focus in cybersecurity. So we built the Cybersecurity Leadership Academy. We built other programs over the years. And what has been emerging here lately, because of the digital transformation that every organization, especially government, is going through and trying to navigate and make sense of and deliver in a really meaningful and powerful way, we were asked to build the AI Leadership Academy. Over the last couple of years, we've been working through phenomenological research design methods and protocols, design thinking protocols to build this 6-week AI program. And we're really aiming to demystify AI, and more than that, provide the tools necessary to make sense of AI relative to where any government business is today and how to plan a path forward so that they can implement AI in the most powerful way, not only for their customers, but for their employee base and other constituents that they work with on a regular basis.
Can I ask a question about this? I know, listen, this is a challenge in New York City government, let alone a lot of significantly smaller governments all across the country and the world. But there's kind of hiring technical talent who has some existing knowledge base about how to implement a lot of these new technologies. And then there's also, and it sounds like this is more what you all are focused on, kind of educating and bringing along current government employees. And I'm just kind of curious how you think about those two things and kind of best practices. If you were talking to like one of your government partners, like, what are the best practices, not just with regard to implementation, but how you think about staffing and such?
Whenever we talk about best practices, we always talk about quote unquote best practices, because what is best practice for one county, parish, borough across the country, or city across the country, or state across the country isn't a best practice for another. When we think about those local government, state government institutions, they're at different areas when it comes to their readiness, their maturity, their desire to leverage certain technologies. And some are, putting policies in place where AI is not allowed in certain areas. Some generative AI tools are not allowed for use. In other institutions, they are allowed for use in certain ways. To address, as you mentioned, Julie, the kind of the best practice, it's very relative, extremely relative based on the organization and the team that is there and who it is that they're serving every day. And so what we're trying to do from a AI Leadership Academy perspective is first and foremost make sense of what's possible with technology, the digital transformation, AI specifically, and especially generative AI as it's becoming more and more popular. But then also, where are you as an organization? What is it you're trying to provide in terms of products and services? And where does AI best support that? Where do other technologies best support that? And so the training and education we try to provide is one of contextualization, one of sense making, and then one of how best do I plan my way forward, and then can use that plan to navigate forward with new initiatives, products, services in carrying out the business of our government. And so best practices are really tough. And Rita, you know this in working with 3,069 counties across the country through all the work that you do from NACO. We've often heard, Rita, if you've seen one county, you've seen one county. And part of this best practice then becomes really relative to what that county is looking to accomplish with technology.
And I think that became really evident in the year-long AI Exploratory Committee that we formed really over a year ago. And we ended up focusing in four major areas that included policy, that included ethics and workforce, as you mentioned a little bit ago, and then applications. So my hat's really twofold, and that the recognition, this type of education about what AI is has to be at different levels. And so like you mentioned, I think, Julie, about the technical aspect. And I have a lot of comments, of course, there and talking to the county CIOs and the work that we're doing on a technical perspective. But we have to take a step back, because the reality is all of these other areas, not only do IT professionals have to understand in the county, but it's the department directors, the elected officials, and it's so much bigger than just developing an app or developing a solution. And interestingly, I think that the misnomer for some folks is, why is this new? AI is not new. It's just been catapulted to the forefront because of generative AI, and also because of the advancements that are happening on the automation side, all the way from computing power to defining the large language models and the ease of that. You now really have a broader group of individuals that can leverage AI and generative AI than we had in the past. As Tim noted accurately and appropriately, it's the responsible AI piece that we really want to get across as we educate and guide those that are signing up to attend this AI leadership cohort. It's incredible, the interest, but also the fact that the 3,069 counties really are a different place on the continuum of the AI journey. We have some that are just going what is AI? I don't understand it. Why should I be concerned? We're just not going to allow it. And, and the reality is you already are doing it. And then those who are more advanced.
Are there any counties that are really like excelling in using AI that are well ahead of everybody else?
That's a great question. Excelling is an interesting word. The first thought that comes to mind for me, and this is public information, Miami-Dade County in Florida has integrated AI with their pet finder app. And it's uh, really an interesting evolution of how it's come about, and how the CIO there, Margaret Brisbane, talks about AI and improving the life of pets and those who are seeking to adopt pets. So there's that example came to mind right away. But of course, there are other counties across the United States that are piloting, and I'll use the word loosely, dipping their toes into it. Because we'll talk a little bit later, I think, just about some of the challenges that are coming about.
I'll add a little bit of context to that as well. I think I agree with Rita in the fact that, excelling is an interesting, word, because I think it is relative as well. I think that there are a lot of pilots that are happening in terms of, what's possible and how do we think about this as securely as we can, as safely as we can, as ethically as we can before we move something out, more rashly perhaps. There are also, some that are a little bit more mature. We can think about chatbots that have been around for a long, long time. A lot of that, is AI driven. And, a lot of counties, cities, states use chatbots to help provide more efficient service, faster service, more accessible service to those that are in need of information in and around those government organizations and the services that they offer. There are some too that are working on really serious issues. Human trafficking obviously is a big, serious issue in this country. And there are counties across the country that are leveraging AI in collaboration with neighboring counties, as well as when we cross state borders, the FBI and other agencies at the federal level and state levels that are really helping to understand where are some of the greatest risks. And they're trying to tie together data that are, from the community, from various other sources, whether it's the Department of Defense, as well as FBI, as well as correctional services, as well as others, and trying to see how they can leverage that data through AI modeling to see where are potential crimes, as well as where are real-time crimes happening, so that they can better deploy officers and law enforcement, other security professionals to help mitigate the risks of, in this case, human trafficking. So very significant issues like that, as well as issues and solutions, as Rita has been mentioning, and so many other ideas in between and beyond. So everything from the farmland to the financial aspects of the work that we get into, to permitting and licensing and other items that are the aspects of government business, are kind of in focus relative to what the potential is. And I think at the foundational element, folks are trying to make sense of it. As Rita's mentioned, there are some folks trying to really make like what are the real possibilities, and is it really a possibility, and how might we be able to do that? They're trying to learn kind of the interconnected workings of AI and how it's actually coming about in terms of solutions. And then there are also others that are trying to figure out ways to make their work more efficient, more effective, and introduce new services as well to those that they serve within their community.
I'm really bullish on a lot of that. I think that it's a really exciting time for government. It sounds like we're really aligned in how we see the world here. But Tim, I think you said it earlier, there is a lot of trepidation, and we're seeing particularly state legislatures pass some laws trying to shut down some of the use tools. I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on the best way to do that. I worry a lot about these kind of blanket prescriptions on how we're going to use AI, how we're going to define it. The technology is moving very quickly, and I think we'd be best off as a society if our governments had a little bit more flexibility to figure that out over time. But there's a lot of risk right now. There's a lot of like legislative risk almost. So I just was kind of hoping either of you, both of you, could talk a little bit about where you see that going, what you think we should be working toward.
Yeah, I
Well,
see a lot of similarities with the legislation and potential legislation around cyber and how that has evolved over the years. And we have different requirements in cyber depending on what state you're in when it comes to notification, for example. And so the states and counties are moving a bit faster than at the national level. As a result of that. And so you have variations all the way from a number of laws that may end up getting signed by the end of this month out in California, and bringing it back to the East, really depending on what the sentiment is in that state and the knowledge. The other piece that drives this too is the GDPR, so the European laws on privacy. Didn't apply to, we didn't apply it to AI because AI wasn't really being discussed back then, but it is coming into play now for sure. And so a number of the counties I talk with are looking at what's in there. What is the European countries doing, or in this case, at the European level, what exactly are they passing? And so we're paying attention to that. And I do know that there are quite a few meetings happening at a federal level, and some requirements, including just having been on the call the other day with a federal agency, the fact that they have to track where is AI being used and what are those acceptable use cases all that have already been in practice. And so that's funneling down to the county level. The challenge at the county level is it gets back to having a good solid list of those use cases. And we know that with Gen AI, for example, that has grown up organically. And where some counties are saying we're just not going to use it, well, it's already happening. And then even further are the solutions that are integrating AI and Gen AI into their tools and their products and notifying after the fact. It's just a part of their regular update procedure now. So it's a little, I want to say it's a little bit of the Wild West at this juncture, but it definitely is still bleeding edge, I guess is the word that I would use.
Julie, you mentioned the trepidation that folks have, and rightfully so. I think we've all seen, whether it be in the news or just through conversations with colleagues or at conventions or wherever it is that we might go, we see a lot of the peril of AI, and we don't necessarily always see being promoted a lot of the promise of AI. Like you mentioned, I too am bullish on a lot of the possibility and the promise of AI, but I don't think we can overlook the peril. And it's one of the things that we focus on in the academy. It's like, what is the promise and the peril of AI? We've all seen, the deep fakes, as they're often referred to, in some articles or TikTok videos or YouTube videos or pick your application of choice videos that you watch. We see some of the deep fakes, and we know the downstream implications, long-standing implications that this misinformation can provide. And there should be trepidation around this technology and any type of new technology. There should be care and concern and intentionality built in the way in which we leverage these type of emerging technologies, especially for the use in our products and services for the community that we serve every day. And we focus on that, within our academy. We try to make that known in terms of there's great promise, but let's not forget the great peril that can come about and how that can injure individuals, harm massive groups of people, or misinform entire nations or the world. And we hold the responsibility, we as leaders in government hold the responsibility of mitigating, if not trying to eliminate fully, that error, the bias that can show up in the way in which we leverage certain technologies and use certain technologies. And so, Julie, I appreciate the language that you use in terms of the trepidation. And I think that that's a good risk factor for us to kind of hold pressure against us and hold some tension in the release of AI and advancing technologies. It helps us to focus on the fact that we need to get this right. We don't have the chance to get it right more than once. And so how do we make sure that we do have the right protocols in place and the right people in the loop, often as it's referred to, in the process of rolling out these types of technologies? Because the technologies leveraging data, and data can be biased, and we still need to have people in the loop because people matter in the work that we do. Our business and the business of most businesses is people serving people. And we try to help make sure that people don't forget about that as they go through our leadership academy. Leadership is needed now, perhaps more than ever, because of the possibility of getting this wrong. And therefore, having that trepidation is good because we're holding ourselves to a level of accountability to make sure that we get it right. Ideally, that's the case in every case of AI being rolled out.
This is really a conundrum. And what I mean by that is I talked personally with those in IT in the county where they have utilized the tools to simplify and expedite something they were working on from a development perspective. I just had an email communication came across 2 days ago, and he said, I stopped and I said, oh my gosh, I can go put this into the tool, and something I'd been struggling with for hours, and it was solved in a matter of seconds. Now, the conundrum is that our hacking community knows that too. And so just as easily as we have access to the tools, so do the hackers. And the flip side again is that our monitoring tools, the cybersecurity providers of the world, are incorporating even more so AI and generative AI tools into their solutions so that we can be more proactive from the monitoring and detection and remediation perspective. So are the hackers. And so it's like I said to somebody the other day, I almost feel like it's whack-a-mole. If you remember that game, and you're just like, which one am I going to hit first? And trying to stay ahead of it. And it comes back to, for the county employees, the county government, and really for everyone, making sure that there is good reviews in the process of using the tools and good communication with the providers of the solutions, asking the right questions. What are you using that's AI driven? How are you using it? And what, large language model or the underlying data, where is that coming from? Those are all questions that need to be asked as we move along in this process, in this journey.
Can you briefly walk us through what the program looks like, Tim? Are there milestones along the way?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The program that we built is a 6-week, fully online program, fully facilitated by expert practitioners so that individuals going through never feel as if they're alone or isolated or kind of just working rotely through material. The 6 weeks are, comprised of, thematically information that has been gathered again from voice of the customer as well as from those that are kind of leading the way. You recently had a podcast from the governor of the great state of New York talking about, Empire AI. We looked into Empire AI as we were thinking about building the content along with, AI strategies from HHS and the White House. 3 administrations specifically have been rolling out AI guidance as well as executive orders and other material and insights around AI. That information, as well as from others like the Government AI Coalition from the city of San Jose and elsewhere, have really come together to make up this content around these 6 weeks. The 6 weeks, starts with introduction to AI, demystifying AI, sense making around AI, just a level set, again, the understanding of AI. The second week does get into the detail of the promise and peril of AI and what do we need to do to make sure that we're leading AI for good and leaning in that direction of promise over peril and mitigating the potential of peril, and if not eliminating it completely, the way in which we go about our work. That work in week 3 then starts to emerge as a roadmap. Where are we at right now when it comes to AI and the digital transformation? Because AI is part of an overall digital transformation that all organizations are going through, especially government. And so week 3 really starts to hone in on where are we on our roadmap? And if we don't have a roadmap, how do we start building one? Week 4 talks about and reminds us that leading is important, especially in times of great change. And we're in times of great change right now. So how do we lead in times of AI and lead people during this era of AI? And then as we go through that leading, how do we optimize AI for meaning and purpose? That's week 5. And then week 6 brings it all together in kind of a 3 horizon forecast of what's going to be happening over the near term, the midterm, and the longer term relative to digital transformation and AI specifically as we continue to go from AI to now generative AI to then what's next beyond that. So we get into this level of detail and it's fully facilitated by our leadership coaches with a blend of content-based case material personal assessments, organizational assessments that we then can turn into personal and organizational reflection about where are we, what can we do now, and how do we move forward, as well as video expert content from individuals like who Rita and I are talking about now, CIOs, CTOs, elected officials, others from across the country who are working through this, challenged by it and working through what's possible because of it. And that is really the content of the curriculum, taking best practices, emerging practices, proven practices, and the challenges that we all face, trying to make sense of those, distilling those into a very immediate, practical, relevant, and actionable set of content that individuals can go through, typically about 4 or 5 hours a week. A lot of it asynchronous, so that it's very convenient for them when they need to consume that content. But then we also have some synchronous activities where individuals can work in small groups of individuals, peers, as they work through the program together, as well as in cohort-wide webinars that are facilitated by our leadership coaches. So it's all online, very convenient, very easy, efficient. So there's not a lot of cost of travel and per diem that county and state and city government folks need to expense, and very relevant, practical, and immediately actionable materials that they can put to work right away.
Can I ask a question about who's taking advantage of the program? My guess would be that it's people who are interested in using AI. So it tends to be local governments and individuals within those governments who are much more open-minded. But I'm curious if that's the case and kind of what you're seeing, who's coming to you to participate.
Yeah, across our organizational academies, we see elected officials, we see frontline leaders, we see emerging leaders looking to get ready for what it is that they're going to be facing when they've got teams of people reporting to them. When it comes to AI specifically, we're seeing elected officials who are trying to make sense for what's valuable and what's possible for their communities that they serve. We are seeing practitioners, individuals like Rita and Rita's peers across the country, CIOs, CTOs, that are focused on technology and how best to secure technology and leverage technology for use. We're seeing operators, county administrators, their operating division leaders and managers who are trying to understand how might I be able to use AI or emerging technology through a digital transformation for my business to make my business more efficient and effective. We're seeing HR folks sign up for the program to understand, what might we need to be doing for our existing team of individuals and workforce, as well as the incoming workforce and recruiting and retention and attraction into the work that we're currently doing. So those are some of the folks that we're seeing. And a lot of the folks are members of the NACO Tech Exchange through Rita's work that she does across the country, and a lot of the committees and groups that she has come together on a regular basis. And so, Rita, you've got a lot of folks from your teams that come together through academies such as this AI program.
Yeah, a couple of other areas I would add, legal, seeing some of the county attorneys or solicitors, of course, that are very interested in having a better understanding of AI and its impacts, of course, on procurement and contracting is another area. And the underlying data governance and data is really important. So I'm seeing in the registrations coming through, data analysts, and as Tim said, the frontline folks, not just CIOs, IT directors, and IT managers, but it's the in the weeds folks from the developer to the data analyst. And something that I didn't know whether we would cover or not, but it is the fact that data and data governance is one of the key foundations and tenets when it comes to implementing responsibly AI and generative AI. And we've really honed in on that, and I think that's why we're getting the interest as well from that segment of county government.
Yeah, and Julie, just to give you a scale of these programs, Rita's mentioned cyber. We do have a cyber program as well as our High Performance Leadership Academy. We've had over 15,000 folks from local government go through our academies. We're launching the AI program this fall, and we already have about 200 people signed up just for this inaugural launch. And we suspect it'll grow even way more going into 2025 as people learn about this academy and want to learn more about AI and how to lead and navigate the complexity and challenges associated with the changes coming from AI.
This feels so optimistic to me. It is like, this is great. This is, just the kind of programming we need so that as the private sector is moving so quickly, we want to make sure that the public sector is not left behind. At Tech NYC, where I work, we're doing a lot to make sure the nonprofit sector is not left behind. I think this is like core foundational work. But one thing I wanted to ask you two, just before we wrap, is what are the use cases you're the most excited about? Like, what is actually like lightning round? What is the application, the single application that you feel like small, big, whatever, that you feel like is just going to be transformative? What should we be paying the most attention to?
Julie, just one? I actually have
No,
a whole
I'll
list.
take a few. I'll take a few.
Okay, so first of all, yes, I was mentioned earlier about chatbots, and I think the exciting part with chatbots is that counties are approaching it from the looking at like the data that's accessible through their website and going, oh my, okay, let's take a step back and let's curate that data and improve our chatbot and make it more friendlier as well as accurate and accessible to anyone who goes to their website. There are counties that are implementing internal chatbots, and it's based on just those documents. A couple other examples I will give. Human resources. We are already seeing applicants using AI in their answers to the questions coming into the HR for applying for a position. So that's interesting on that side. But more importantly, is using it to refine job descriptions quickly. I've already heard of success stories where, oh my gosh, it would have taken me so much longer to update this job description. And I use the generative tool to help do that. Automating the process, of course, of reviewing applications that are coming in, but keeping the human in the loop and remembering that we don't want bias to affect some of that decision making. Another area that I get really excited about is with public safety and the fact that we've had drones in use, we've had body cameras in use, but now as the AI features become even more robust and rich, how much more effective we can be with public safety, whether it's through sending out the robot ahead of humans going to an emerging situation. So that one really gets me excited. As much as we are concerned, there is just so much in terms of productivity improvements that can happen and decision making that can actually save lives. So that's just a few of the, I have a whole list. So I'll stop there.
No, I think about that maybe a little bit differently in the fact that I look at it not in terms of the single use case or a few use cases that are most important or that I'm most excited about or optimistic about. I look at it in terms of every discipline within every piece of work within every organization. I think has just great opportunities now and in the foreseeable future because of what we're seeing come together in terms of technology, innovativeness, and just opportunity of people wanting to make things more efficient, make things more effective, and things by products, services, or just the interaction that we have with one another throughout our community and in some cases for ourselves. Rita mentioned some of the use cases relative to HR. I think that there's great opportunity from a recruitment perspective. I think there's great opportunity for employee perspectives as well. Employees leveraging AI technology to find their next job, to find their career trajectory, to find opportunities that maybe they weren't even thinking about before. We see AI, and this is kind of the promise of AI, and we've seen some of this in the news that let's shift from HR into the healthcare setting. We've seen breakthroughs in healthcare because of the technology that we have accessible today. We see more and more collaboration taking place within healthcare and across every business sector these days. I think the access to collaboration is huge because of the possibilities of AI and generative AI. Whether you're a doctor or a nurse on the administrative side, or if you're a patient, within a healthcare system, I think you've got huge opportunities when it comes to the application of AI, just in terms of knowing more about yourself, knowing more about what might happen in the future, which then gives you insights, information, data from which you can make better decisions, in this case for your own health. That transpires into the classroom, take it out of the healthcare arena, take it into the education arena. This will help faculty members. It'll help administrators within education. AI can help to assess where are individuals at. Are they getting the material a little bit faster? And if so, can we speed up the curriculum for that individual? Is someone struggling a little bit more so? Can we slow the curriculum down or provide additional curriculum for that individual to try to catch up or build some level to the next level of learning for that individual? The application is huge, I think, across any discipline. If you're responsible for infrastructure, buildings and roads and bridges, I think, have a new opportunity when it comes to the leveraging of technology. Any type of manufacturing, I think, is huge opportunity. Any type of, outreach to community, I think there are huge opportunities. And I think, Rita, you've been involved in what are sometimes being referred to as hackathons. You and I both agree that's probably not the right word for these, but where groups come together and what they just bubble up ideas around problems, challenges, issues that they see in their work or in their community or in their products and services. And they have a brainstorm around how might we see technology leveraging solutions in a different way and getting some of those solutions and those ideas that come from employees. They come from neighboring organizations or counties. And Julie, you mentioned about private industry, doing certain things, private and industries coming together with public institutions to identify opportunities, I think is going to be increasingly valuable in the future. Not that it hasn't been valuable, it has always been valuable, but increasingly so because of the technology that's made available and leveling some of the playing field across private and public institutions. So you asked for a single one. I think there's a single one in every seat that somebody has in an organization to think about how technology can be a mechanism and a lever for improvement for themselves and those that they serve going forward.
I love that, and I love that optimistic note too. I think that a lot of times in these conversations, we like lose sight of the fact that government, especially local government's purpose is to serve the citizens. And a lot of these tools can enable government to more effectively, more efficiently serve more citizens more quickly. Because right
Well,
now, I think a lot of us know that there's significant wait times. I mean, it's hard. And to me, when I think about, and Tim, I think this is exactly what you're saying, but correct me if I'm wrong. When I think about like those increases to productivity can be incredibly meaningful to, especially at the local government level. And that's really, really exciting.
especially at the local government level, this podcast is Smart Cities podcast. Think about smart cities, coming together and what that means as a city. The city working in collaboration with its citizens, working in collaborations with its counties, working across boundaries into neighboring cities and counties as well to make sure that they provide their citizens the best experiences that they can possibly get, whether that is getting medical services to those that are in need and helping make sure that the smart city is connected in such a way that individuals can get to the right place for those services or those services can get to the right people at the right time. When we think about the education piece, when we think about just being out in the community at the parks and at the lakes and at the, fill in the blanks of your favorite, locations for experiences and just entertainment and just being out in the community, huge opportunities to have connected people within connected cities, within connected counties, within connected states across the country, I think is incredibly powerful. And I am much more bullish on that than I am pessimistic for sure. And I see much more opportunity for promise than peril. And I think we've got a lot of smart people like Rita and the team at NACO and elsewhere that are really focused on mitigating the peril so that we can operate in the safest, most secure, most enjoyable country in the world.
80% of the counties in the United States are small. And it's the access to things like grant writing, for example, and it's applying for grants that is so difficult. And the AI, the generative AI, is making that easier for those smaller communities to be able to access some of the funding that's available. So I do believe it's bringing equity in that area as well. So just made me think of that, Tim, as you were talking about some of the other opportunities that we're seeing.
Julie, I'm sure you'll agree that we should recommend to our friends in the city council and the state legislature in New York that they take this class. We can certainly use it in New York City. I want to thank both of you for coming onto our show. This has been great. And thank you, Julie, for co-hosting with me. We hope our listeners in New York and elsewhere take this 6-week course because it's so important, such an important topic. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, guys. been great. Well, that was super interesting. I'm so glad we had that conversation.
Yeah, they both really are right on the, as you said before, on the ground and trying to figure out how to make AI work on a daily basis in government.
Yeah, I mean, this is the promise, right? This is like the peril and the promise of this time.
Yeah, but it's great that there are people who are trying to actually do leadership programs and seminars, and so because right now I think it's just such a confusing thing to everybody, and the last thing we need is people in government to be confused by AI.
Totally. Well, it was great, and I'm so glad they were able to join. I also want to thank our sponsors, Uber, Spectrum, Civic Hall, TikTok, Google, DoorDash, and Snapchat.
And like and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and iHeart, and tell us your feedback. We'd love to hear it.
Thank you.